Welcome to the 2021 Bizcommunity ACA series. I'm your host, Rutendo Nyamuda, and today I'm honored to be speaking to Alistair King, founder and chief creative officer of King James Group, in conversation with Sydney Mbhele, chief executive brand at Sanlam Group, who join me in celebrating the topic of diversity and inclusivity in the South African advertising industry, made possible by the ACA, Association for Communication and Advertising.
China has more than 200 confirmed cases of coronavirus.
The running tally of people infected has doubled.
What do you do when a global pandemic cancels your plans?
Now, there have already been major concert cancellations in Asia.
2020 Summer Olympics, now the latest major sports cancellation caused by the global...
How big this is.
It's almost too much to take on.
You make a new one.
Caitlin Rooskrantz was meant to spend the 2nd of August at the 2020 Olympics.
We created a plan B for one of South Africa's Olympic hopefuls.
To wait an additional year than ever to represent South Africa.
Sanlam introduced the world to Caitlin Rooskrantz.
I don't believe that I've given up on anything in my life.
And on Sunday, the 2nd of August at 5 p.m. Japan Standard Time, at the exact moment she would have gone for gold in Tokyo, Caitlin performed her Olympic routine, live streamed for South Africa and the world to watch.
Would have brought home gold for South Africa at Tokyo 2020.
If you missed it, here's the slip.
Caitlin, I'm just going to call you my official subordinate.
I had tears. I had
Running town.
Caitlin was the only Olympian the world saw perform in 2020. And Sanlam showed that though plans change, dreams don't have to.
All right, so Alistair, I'm going to start with you. Really excited for this discussion, I must admit, because I've seen the video and I've seen the campaign, and it was really emotional for me. But the campaign by your agency, King James, on behalf of your client, Sanlam, allowed South African gymnast Caitlin Rooskrantz to be the only Olympian the world saw live in 2020. And so this feat is not only, incredibly great for seeing Caitlin go through her pristine routine, but also being able to film it and to broadcast it at the same time that she would have performed it in Tokyo, I believe deserves a gold medal in itself. And in fact, it did take home a gold medal at the Lurries, which allowed and put your agency and your client on the ranking for local and international awards. So massive congratulations to you. And then with regards to today's topic, obviously, of diversity and inclusivity in the South African ad industry, could you talk to me about the people who were involved in the various aspects that had to be coordinated to bring this all together?
Sure, yes. I mean, I think you also have to remember the context in which that piece of work was created. It was slap bang in the middle of the very first lockdown. And I don't know how you felt, but it was a very unsettling period in time. And no one knew what was happening. And this idea was kind of conceived at a very inconvenient time, not just because our hearts are so kind of in disarray, but also because it was very difficult to make advertising in that period of time. So this was presented in March last year and actually was executed in the very first, right at the end of April, which was the first time agencies were allowed to go and shoot advertising. So it was shot and conceived and executed under very challenging circumstances. So, a lot of credit must go not only to the people that created the idea, that had it, but also to the Sanlam team who had every reason not to say, let's do it, because it was such a challenging and ambitious and audacious idea. but the idea, obviously, an idea of this magnitude has lots of moving parts. So there's lots of people involved. There's creative people like Jared Osmond and Cameron Watson, who had the idea, and then it goes into production. And it's at its heart, it's a live event, which means you've got to stage this live at a online, so that the world can watch it at the exact moment that Caitlin would have attempted it, would have done her routine. The production logistics are a nightmare. So credit must go to our production team here, to Giant Films, and to Paul Ward, who captured that moment so poignantly. It was an incredible moment. I normally in my experience, when ideas are ambitious and audacious, they tend to be incredibly satisfying when you pull them off. And let's be honest, the real pressure was on Caitlin. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be doing something with so much potential to go wrong, being broadcast live for the world to see. I mean, my heart would be in my throat all the time. So she must get the ultimate credit. And to the marketing team at Sanlam who ran with it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and all the moving parts and all the people. And this is the beautiful thing about being able to work on these campaigns. It's every single person plays like such a massive role in bringing things together. And Sydney, congratulations, absolutely congratulations. You must be super proud to have your brand associated with such a prestigious and beautiful piece of work that I'm sure will live in the history books for a very long time. But this concept allows your brand to be seen as really putting your money where your mouth is, so to say, not just believing in the South African creative services industry and seeing it as a value driver, but, just saying like, we're backing this 100%. So what role do you think that investment by brands can play in supporting greater diversity and inclusivity in South Africa's creative industries?
Well, the truth is, we often talk about brands being purposeful. That's a really big, sort of ethos and promise that we make to the world, to be a purposeful business. And people look at corporates and brands often in the context of transactional or commercial relationships. But the truth is, particularly in financial services, there's a huge role that all of us can play in helping people move further in life. And Al did mention this when this campaign was crafted. It was at a time when all of us, were going through a really, really, really tough time, and it was important for a brand to come in and say, despite what you may have gone through, now is the time to plan. Now is the time to reframe your life. Now is the time to, reposition yourself in the context of what's happening. It's not the bad things that happen to us. It's not the disappointments that we have in our lives that matter. It's what we do with those things. And the story of Caitlin is a really powerful story in bringing that inclusivity, right? Inclusivity is not only, in the context of financial concepts. It's also on how you inspire ordinary people or give them a sense of what it takes, for them to achieve their aspirations. She had just come, back, I think a year or so earlier, having won some awards internationally. She was looking forward to the Olympics, and then COVID, and her story, is really so powerful in how it mirrors the story of individuals, ordinary people of South Africa and the world, for that matter. And I think using that as a catalyst to give people hope is something that I'm really, really proud of, and that's when a purpose becomes tangible, more than just what you promise with your words.
Wow, that's absolutely powerful and absolutely incredible. Just looking at and reflecting back on watching their campaign or watching the video, it in itself did definitely stir all of these emotions. And Alistair, I'm going to come back to you on this because, you know, even just watching it, and Sydney, you've mentioned her story is something that we could all connect to. We all had ambitions, we all had dreams, we all had goals that we put forward, and then the pandemic happened and they all came on hold. But what does it look like? And even watching her, you know, walk up, you know, preparing her routine and walking up and performing to an empty crowd, you can almost imagine yourself in those spaces. And I think what was so powerful was that clap at the end by, I think it was her coach. And it was just like, you could almost imagine an entire crowd applauding, and it's that single clap. And it was just like, so heartfelt. So, you know, this campaign definitely stirred real emotions. And even looking at what was on Twitter, the Twitter stream, where people were crying and just saying how connected they were to this. It's definitely, this, you know, shows that example. And there's so many other examples in the industry of how the excellence of South African talent and the ability that we have to create content that can connect with people and, you know, connect with people not just locally, but on a global stage. And how impactful that is. So Alistair, do you think, so to say, Goosebumps and this emotive, communicative way could be a revenue stream for us as an industry?
Look, I think Goosebumps stroke emotion has always been what separates great advertising from pedestrian advertising. But I don't think our industry has ever worked out how to monetize that. As far as I'm aware, emotional impact is not something, there's no line item in our fee structure that says the emotional weight of your communication. And so I think your idea is brilliant. And or how about it? Should we consider that in our future going structures? The emotional weight of our advertising. Bonus. But I do think that is ultimately what makes brands valuable, is when they land with an emotional weight that makes you feel not only for what's happening, but also for the brand. And you know, you're imbuing a brand with heart, and that's really what emotion is really the tool to do that with. We have extraordinary stories in this country. I recently showed this campaign to David Droga, and he commented. He said, you know, the South African experience and the work that shows the South African experience is so unique and so powerful. And he raised it as a really good comment on the kind of work we do. And I think there is a global fascination with South Africanness. I think they're fascinated with our stories. I think they're fascinated with our music. I think they're fascinated with our history and what we've achieved as a group of people and what we've overcome. And they hate our rugby team, but that's okay, because we're aggravating them. So I do agree with you. I think we've got something special that's worth flaunting to the world, and I think that if we can't celebrate our greatness and the things that make us great, then who's going to? You know, it's our job. It's our job. Let's make heroes out of our stories and our people and our experiences, and that's, yeah, I love that idea.
It's absolutely powerful, and I think it is that, you know, that unique, it's the human story. And I think the honesty behind a lot of these stories that we tell, first of all, we can see ourselves in them. And ultimately there are those, you know, fundamental human emotions that everyone can feel from a global perspective, and being able to get those right and communicate that is so powerful as well. So we'd like to see that line item next year.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Sydney.
What were you saying? I didn't hear.
How many?
So cruel. Gonna edit that up. They're going to edit that whole bit out, aren't they?
Sydney, last year, a global consultancy company, Edelman, released their widely respected global trust survey. And in South Africa, like many other countries, business came out as the most trustworthy institution, more than the governments, more than NGOs in general. Do you think that this means that the roles and responsibilities and relationships of business and brand to customers and consumers and audience in general are shifting? And what implications might this have for your brand or brands in general?
I think it is shifting. You know, I hear more and more people talking about, and I refer to it as purpose. And it's important to have the relevance of what you're trying to do, though. You know, so it's not just about trying to be purposeful for the sake of. Right? It's important to have the insights, the client insights that you can fulfill through a very rigorous analysis of what drives them on a day-to-day basis. I always make the point, you know, that brands are like people. You know, they have personality. You know, you don't trust someone who's schizophrenic. You trust someone who wants to show care to you, right? That's why you become friends with some people and not others. That's why you marry some people and not others, right? It's because brands are like people, and it's important for us to show up in that way, in the most human way possible, so that we can elevate that trust barometer. And, you know, if we promise things, we should deliver them, you know, and always make the point, what we are, what we do and what we say always has to be congruent. Otherwise, it becomes a case in point where the sum of parts do not make a whole. So brands have to have meaning in what they do and what they say, and they have to live up to the promise and deliver it. Otherwise, you don't become authentic. And if you're not authentic, then you also don't generate the trust that you need, you know, to be able to get people connected to you for the long term. You know, I mean, when you see this campaign, you don't see an investment, you know, sort of or ad attached to it, or a policy or funeral cover or life cover associated to it. You know, it's because at the time, what we're trying to do is really give people motivation about what it matters to stay the long haul, and to be hopeful about the future and start to plan your future in a more thoughtful way, and then have the right partner to help you to be able to do that. And, you know, we become that partner to you.
Sure. That's absolutely fundamental and so true. I think one of the big differences I've seen in terms of certain international advertising and the way they approach it and the way that it's approached in South Africa is really different. There is that aspect of, you know, we're not just a brand trying to sell you something. We're a brand that's trying to give you a story. We're a brand that's trying to say, we see you. And we're a brand that's trying to communicate with you. And I think exactly to your point, that's the captivation behind it. And then it's like, oh, by the way, this is by, you know, Sanlam, or this is an association with this company. And that's the difference. It's almost like seeking the heart first, and just, you know, the company backing it. So that's incredible. And thank you so much. Alistair, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that point you've just made is really critical for me. It's something I know, but I needed the reminder. I was reading through an article. It was a science article, and they were talking about how people retain information, and they were saying that you know, it's very clear that people retain well-told stories much more than they retain facts. And I am concerned in the digital era how so much budget is being spent on delivering facts to people or eyeballs. And I just, you know, as you scroll through social media, there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of facts that you are streaming past, and they're registering as having been delivered, but I don't know if they've been received, if you know what I'm saying. And what you've just said is exactly that point, is that when you do capture a profound, and I hate the word storytelling as well, because it's become a kind of a category of advertising in its own right. But when you do capture something beautiful and you express it in communication, it absolutely moves people. They remember it. They absolutely are connected to the brand in a way that they would not be connected to you if they just read some interesting fact about what your product delivers. So you don't you don't have to convince me. This is what I love about our industry, and I think the brands that see the balance between facts and sales and heartfelt communication are the brands that do succeed, and we believe that, and that's why I think so much of our advertising at Sanlam is powerful with the team, because they see that as well.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that, and so true. And being able to find, I guess, both a client and an agency that is able to equally say, this is the agenda, this is the way forward, is also so important. And that was definitely seen in this campaign. Alistair, staying on you, the advertising industry in itself and creative sectors, so to say, have always been perceived as these aspirational environments to be in, a lot of hard work and long hours, but, there's a lot of passion and there's a lot of fun behind what is done. And it's all worthwhile, definitely. But the industry itself, as we're looking at it, and, we were speaking briefly before, starting to pull up a lot more seats to the table, especially when it comes to diversity. So what is your viewpoint on the benefits of inclusive thinking from agencies and brands, and what have you seen in your incredible career from when you started up until now?
I think that is absolutely what makes our industry so appealing to people, is the fact that it's a vehicle for you to stretch your imagination in such extraordinary ways. But diversity is always a good idea in any creative industry. If there's a predictability about the way that you communicate, you're on a journey that's going to lead you nowhere, and you're going to just get your communication is just going to be very staid. There's a lot of things that we support as a company, and then that I support as in my own right. One of the things that I absolutely love is an initiative founded by Nkanyezi Masango, who's an ECD at King James. He started, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago, a movement called, I wouldn't call it a movement, it's an initiative called Blackboard. And his aim is to do exactly what you've just described. His aim is to take the advertising industry and take it to people who ordinarily wouldn't know about our industry, who aren't in that class of elitism that you speak about, and to present us as a great career prospect. And so he's doing something that our industry should be doing as a collective. He describes it as kind of democratizing creativity and promoting broader socioeconomic inclusion. And I love that initiative. I'm dragging as many people into it as possible because it deserves all the support it can get. On a personal level, I've been involved. I've been an ambassador for Accountability International since about 2016. And they're an amazing organization. They've also, King James is the first agency to endorse their Equality Challenge, which was essentially a set of guidelines offered to the industry to help promote inclusion, not only within the agency, say how can you become a more diverse agency, but how can you change your communication to reflect the world that we want, and the world that is fair and that's not prejudiced. And I think a lot of good agencies have signed up with them, and it's a conscious effort to be aware of the kind of advertising that we produce and our responsibility to that advertising, and to work towards just transforming our world, not just our businesses. So those are two wonderful positions. We as communicators are in a very powerful position. The work that we produce goes out on air, it's viewed by millions and millions of people. And we've got to be very conscious of what we put into that advertising and our narrative, our personal narrative.
Definitely. And Sydney, I'd actually be very interested to ask, your thoughts and opinions on maybe share just, based on what Alistair has spoken about, because, Sanlam is, it's traditional hardcore corporate. And it's almost like, why look into the creative aspects? Why not do a hard sell? Why approach it differently? Why work, with an agency, with an award-winning agency? Why take that approach? And the importance behind it as well.
I mean, I think we, at some point in the world, I think we forgot that in some of the categories, I think we forgot that we are dealing with human beings, who have both an emotional and a rational to themselves. And we don't necessarily sell the technical expertise that we have. Our forte is financial services, right? But if I sell you something that you don't understand, you're not going to buy into it. I mean, there's a very good example of way back, I think it was GPRS. You may remember this, Alistair, when in the old days of mobile telephony at GPRS, and I think the two big players, I'm not going to mention their names, I'm sure you know who they are. The two big players in South Africa were launching GPRS at the same time. And one of them had a full page ad in one of the weekend newspapers with, here's GPRS, MHZ speed and bullet points and all of this, actually quite impressive of this kind of technology that comes with GPRS, and they were selling it to me, who actually doesn't understand anything about technology in that sort of realm. And then the other, in the same newspaper, it just had someone sitting on the beach with a laptop open, and the headline was, "Now you can work from anywhere." Actually, the one was selling technology, the one was telling you the benefits of technology. Now, you can just see the power of creativity there, is that actually we had forgotten, I think, as a system, that we are talking to human beings who digest and consume information. It's often in its simplest form, and it's got to bundle both the emotion and the rational, right? And the balance is important. And who best to do that translation than the creative industry? And actually, the people who do the biggest job are those who are the catalyst to doing that. Take something that's very complex and actually miniaturize it and make it simple and understandable to people, and make it inspirational, make it delightful, make it attractive, and in the corporate sense, we actually don't know how to do that. Even in the marketing teams, we spend a lot of time in the business side of it rather than the creative side of it. So I could never overemphasize the importance of that capability wherever it exists. Catalysts for good often reside in creativity.
I love that so much. I love that so much, Sydney, because it's, I've always had this, I'm digressing a little bit, but I sometimes find it hard to verbalize how satisfying my life has been as a creative person. Because, people just go, oh, it's an advertising, but I work with music, with film, with photography. I work with such talented people in pursuit of what I do. And it's such a gift actually to spend my life doing that. And basing it in a business imperative makes it even, it's not just pictures and pretty pictures for the sake of it. It has a business goal. It's grounded in real, in a real purpose. It's not just airy fairy. And I've absolutely had the best life possible doing that. And the more I try to convey, which is what I think is what they're trying to do with Blackboard, is to convey what a satisfying life it is to be sitting in this position and to express yourself so freely is such a lucky, I'm a lucky person for that.
And listening to you both speak, like there is no doubt that you're both incredibly passionate about what you do, but also incredibly proud and overwhelmingly, I don't even know what the word is, overwhelmingly just proud about, even this campaign, because, Sydney, you've mentioned certain checkbox things that, are really important, and these almost checkbox list things about, compassion, being able to see people, allowing people to see themselves, not just making it about a corporate message. All of these things are, if I had a checklist that, would tick every single one of them when it came to this campaign specifically. And, this campaign definitely sets an example, definitely sets a benchmark for other creative agencies and brands and corporates in so many different ways to how to look at different stories and find a unique aspect. Caitlin was going to the Olympics, Caitlin was going to Tokyo, and taking that story and say, like, how do we connect with this in a broader sense? That said, Sydney, what would you like to see more of? When it comes to campaigns, what would you like to see more of in the future?
I mean, I'd like, I spend not maybe enough time, but I spend a lot of time in the mornings, getting ready to go to work, and I watch telly, and I look at the ads, and I open magazines, and, I actually do not see a lot of groundbreaking stuff, unexpected stuff. And I mean, I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more of people pushing themselves a bit more on, how do I cut through the clutter? It just sounds like something we talk about every day in the industry, but actually it is something so profound. If I'm gonna approve a billboard next time, how do I make sure that the billboard is the best that I've done in my career? It's like it's very simple things, and so I'd like to see people be more experimental. And I say that deliberately because I would like to believe that maybe we maybe we are not experimenting enough, or we don't allow ourselves to experiment enough. And the truth is, when his team brought that idea with Caitlin, it was something that was very different, and look at where it landed us. And some of the work that we've done, it's work that, when they present initially, you kind of feel uncomfortable. But actually in that discomfort, you realize that's where the juice is, and so it's okay for us to push ourselves to those limits of discomfort and trying to find new and better ways to communicate. I think I'm going to become a business person now, but I think, ultimately, we are not good at framing what is the thing we are trying to solve, because there's just so many ways, that you can solve that problem. What is the thing you're trying to solve? And being obsessive in delivering to that, and blending the creativity that we've been talking about, the unexpected, nature of how you can do it, and all the things of, the purposeful nature of it, and blending all of these things. It sounds easy, but it's not. And that's why not everyone wins, awards. It's because it takes a lot to get there.
Definitely, and very, very, very true. And Alistair, from your opinion, having worked on hundreds and thousands of campaigns across different platforms, what would you like to see more of in the industry? I'm sure you've also been very experimental, as Sydney says, in how you approach things. So in the one vein, I would like to know, what you would like to see more of in the industry. And on the other side, I would like to know, when do you feel like it's too much? When do you get to a point where you say, oh, we're not going to, be this experimental on this campaign, or how will people perceive this?
It's entirely appropriate that Sanlam's positioning is live with confidence. That's their line. And I think that we're in the business of confidence as well. And in my experience, confidence it's not a point in time where you have to make a brave decision. It's a you've made lots and lots and lots and lots of little decisions that grow your confidence over time. And I do think the marketers that really get it are the ones that started out and they made a little decision, and it might be a little radio ad, or it might be a little promotion, it might be and it works, and then and your confidence grows. And it's the same with creative people. You kind of gain your confidence, and your ambitions for your clients grows with it. The magic happens when your clients and your agency has the same level of confidence and ambition for the brand that they're working on together. Because oddly enough, the best advertising doesn't necessarily feel like you don't. Sometimes it goes, oh my word, am I really going to approve this? This feels like I'm really out on a limb here. But a lot of the time it doesn't. It's just the fact that you're in a position where you go, this is something unique. This is something I've never seen before. This is going to touch me. This is going to make my heart flutter a little bit. And those are not really scary emotions. It's just the willingness to have that emotion and to link your brand to that emotion, and to respect that emotion can bring incredible business value to the products you're selling. So, and that's the first point that I wanted to make. The second point, and this might seem controversial in the context of this interview, but awards are not everything. Some of the most magnificent advertising, the stuff that I'm most proud of, and I'm never won big awards. Give That Man a Bells was an idea that my agency worked on. Sorry to mention another brand, Sydney, but it didn't go and clean up at award shows. But I'm proud of it because I know that it had massive value in the marketplace, and people had a relationship with those set of words. So I don't link my confidence to award shows in the sense that I do feel disappointed when we don't win awards. I do feel satisfied when we do. But I also have a sense, and I guess that comes from years and years of making advertising and having hopefully more success than failure. I do have a sense of when something is worth saying and worth powerful, and it will move people. And that I hold on to that, because that's really what I firmly believe, that's what, when Sydney's paging through a magazine or watching TV, he is moved by advertising that does come across as fresh and original and provocative and interesting. And I strive for that. Our company strives for that, and I know that we do strive for that with the Sanlam team, and we get there quite a lot, I think.
Sure, absolutely. And I love what you said about, not doing this for awards, because I think it's easy to then sit and think about what is the formula? What have we done before? What did other people do before? And instead of, doing as a creative agency what you do best, which is just like a clean slate, almost blue sky, what is possible? What can we do? And I think that's exactly what this campaign showed. And this is exactly what this campaign delivered. It was that, let's think blue sky, let's go for gold. And essentially, you won gold. So
I mean, I think to that point, I think I know what it's like. The relationship between a client and an agency is so critical, because the client gives permission to the agency to take that brave, to put something on the table that's absolutely has no precedent. Where you do get unstuck as an agency is when you're trying to stretch an idea just a little bit beyond what another brand has stretched it. And actually what you need to do is reframe it completely. Then you have really, truly original ideas where the consumer is surprised by it. And if the consumer is going to be surprised by it, you can be sure the marketer is going to be surprised by it. And that element of surprise, as unsettling as it is often the reason why it's going to be effective and why it's going to work and why people are going to notice it and see it and think differently about your brand. So that's the part that we've got to be excited about. We're not trying to just do something marginally better than our competitors. We've got to do something fundamentally different to our competitors. And that's where I guess the courage and the confidence ultimately leads to in your life as a creative marketer.
I like your kind of slipping of confidence there, Al.
Cunning, eh?
And so coming back to the campaign, ultimately winning gold, really setting a unique aspect benchmark for campaigns on the continent, not just in South Africa, on the continent, internationally. Sydney, I want to find out from you, what are the plans are there any plans to continue kind of like mining the seam or continue kind of pushing this out, or what happens next?
No, I mean, I think it's, but I like the notion of not chasing awards. I like the notion of responding to the most fundamental needs of clients and articulating our solutions as a business and brand in the best way possible, in a way that's it's easy for them to understand what we're trying to do, in the way that's inspirational, in the way that leaves a lasting legacy on why our business exists, which is to empower generations to be financially confident, secure, and prosperous. I think, that's our North Star, and if we can do that the best we can, and still win awards, fantastic. But actually why we exist is really as a business to contribute to the notion of financial inclusion, financial security, and do it in the way that will inspire people. And I'd like to prioritize that. Yes, we want to do it in the most exciting ways possible, in the most effective ways possible, so that we can achieve our business objectives. I think that's the North Star.
That's amazing. Alistair, I actually want to throw in an interesting question, and it was something that you said, I think, prior to our conversation, which is almost how campaigns and advertising kind of allow you to see a world as you want it to be, and not just see the world as it is. How important is that when you're, putting campaigns together, when you're strategizing? And perhaps how has that changed even in a South African context from, when you started in 1989 up until now? How has that changed? How important is it to kind of create those spaces? What is the impact or the weight on creating these campaigns, on creating how we see ourselves through advertising?
I think you're just trying to draw attention to my age here, aren't you? Yes, when I started in 1989 in advertising, I was, it was quite interesting because brands led the way in so many ways. I mean, I remember there was a world was depicted of racial transformation in 1989, and beer brands did it. Of all things, beer brands showed diverse racial groups socializing together before it was even kind of legal and permissible. And I remembered that going, this is an extraordinary thing that they've got here. They can actually depict the world that we want to be in and that we want the country to be in. And there was a movement happening amongst consumers that we're going, okay, I'm seeing the world differently here. And I think that that's where we are now, is in our concerted effort to change the world and transform the way people live their lives. We are in control of that narrative. So showing the world that we want to be, depicting diversity and inclusion and just being more decent is really the power that we have, and the power that we have to change things. So I'm a big advocate for our role in that bigger story, and our responsibility with that regard. I mean, I think just to come back to, if you don't mind, coming back to the question you asked, which was really about mining this idea. If you look at this idea, I don't think we want to repeat the same idea. I mean, there's no merit in doing that. But at the heart of the idea is the very simple observation that you must never let circumstances derail a good plan, or derail any plan. It's a story of resilience, human resilience in a sense, and in the same way, financial resilience comes with that confidence. So I think that we will, because it's at the heart of what Sanlam is about, we will pursue this idea and show it in different ways. Not in pursuit of awards, but because it's a meaningful idea, and it's an idea that resonates with people, and it's an idea that makes people move. It moves people. So, yeah, we'll unpack that a bit. I don't know if this warns our competitors, but we're on it.
Yeah. And my final question to you both comes back to something, Sydney, you said about legacy. Which I think is really important. And I'd like to ask you both, what kind of a legacy do your companies, do your brands want to leave in this space, in this industry as a whole? And Sydney, I'll start with you.
Look, we've clearly articulated our purpose as a business, which is to empower generations to be financially confident, secure, and prosperous. We want to empower, over the next 5 years, over 50 million people on this continent through the work that we do. We want to invest over R1 trillion in the economies of this continent. But more than anything, we want people to have a sense of belief in themselves that they can build this thing called financial confidence. And it's not just any other kind of confidence. And it's a feeling of empowerment that makes you feel like you are in control of your life. And that whether you have a lot or a little, you can change your world and change the world of those around you and those you love. And if we do that, and we do that in a sustainable manner, I'm going to be the happiest, and I'm sure our clients, shareholders, and everybody else who's associated with us will be proud of the work that we do.
Certainly. And Alistair, what is the legacy of the King James Group?
It's a very big and profound question. I don't know. We're on a wonderful journey of our own. We've just been acquired by the Accenture Group, so we are in a brand new chapter after 24 years of independence. We're extremely excited about how much our company is going to be enriched by this partnership and this acquisition. On a personal level, I've always had incredible pride in what we do as a company and the clients in which we do it on. My legacy is not that important, other than for me to one day be able to sit down and show a reel of the work we've done and have people to go, I remember that. Wow, that was awesome. That is the simplest way to define what moves me and moves King James as a company. We just want to be proud of the work we do, and that hopefully that creates its own legacy in people's minds.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you so much. Thank you both so much for your time. Thank you both so much for such an incredible and impactful conversation. And congratulations again on the incredible campaign that has certainly touched the hearts, the minds, the lives of South Africans and people all around the world. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Fantastic. Thank you to our amazing guests. And thank you all so much for joining us for Bizcommunity's industry-wide initiative, celebrating these important conversations around diversity and inclusivity in the South African advertising industry, made possible by the generous support of the ACA, Association for Communication and Advertising.